You're listening to Dead Air Podcast, part of Splatterpictures.net.
What's up, guys? Wes, Dead Air Knipe here with
Typical Lydia.
And we're talking today about an Indonesian horror film called Macabre. The first time that I saw this movie, I got it purely because of the cover. You know, it had a creepy woman on it with a fork and a finger and a small image below it of a chainsaw-wielding woman and another chick with a sword. And they were both completely covered in blood, so I just figured how bad could it be.
Yeah, it's super bloody, and I love the finger on a fork thing. That was really, really awesome. And the tagline, horror has a mother.
Horror does have a mother, and it comes in the form of Dara. The film's about a group of a few friends that go up in a minivan and to a crazy house.
Okay, no. Call them like you see them. Randos in a minivan.
There are a bunch of randos in a minivan.
It's randos.
There doesn't seem to be too much of a unifying theme. Basically, there are a bunch of friends that are going to see somebody off to a new job that he's taking in Australia. Beforehand, they stop off at a restaurant and they pick up the guy who's going on the new job's sister so she can see him off. And, of course, they encounter the hitchhiker character on their journey, in this form, a young woman, who they rescue from the rain.
Oh, wait. A bunch of loosely affiliated people in a van pick up a hitchhiker in the rain.
Sounds a little familiar. No?
I was just remarking on how amazing that is. Yeah, it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of thing that everyone's said that this is emulating.
It very much is. I mean, when you're looking at any sort of horror movie where a bunch of people are out in the middle of nowhere and they find a family of killers, there's really no way that you can't compare it to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And in that sense, it's derivative in a lot of ways of it and the cliches that come from that genre of horror. But it's effective in Macabre because at no point are they winking at the camera. They play it straight. Mm-hmm. And these cliches are just the conventions of the genre, and they're passable because of that.
Yeah, they hit the notes and they hit them right, and they don't hit the silly ones. Except, even though when I was being silly, like, is this going to be the part where he does this? And, you know, at first he didn't, but then the rage overtook him and he did. I don't want to spoil any bits of the movie.
Right.
Because that scene actually kind of happens in all the crazy family movies.
Right.
But yeah, there was a few instances like that. I know what scene I'm talking about. But,
yeah, for real. And the movie itself really doesn't just take from Texas Chainsaw. I really feel like this was an homage really to a lot of Western horror. I felt, even though it was coming from Indonesia, and this is the first film from that area that I've ever seen.
Yeah, same here.
And I really was expecting something more in line with what I'm familiar with how Asian cinema typically is. But I really felt like they wanted to make a Western horror film, and as opposed to like an Asian one, which has different conventions and stuff like that. But this one had everything from, you know, the cannibal family to, you know, one of the sons that was very much like a Michael Myers type character.
Yeah, a lot like Michael Myers. Like from the very, very first time he walks on screen as the shape of Macabre instead of the shape being Michael Myers. It's almost like a clone walking out.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, I don't think. I think it's just that sort of cold, sociopathic, large, strong man is just bound to look like that. And then he gave that wonderful little head tilt that his mom actually does, Dara does in the film as well, which is just so Myers-esque.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have, but he's just this cold, unstoppable beast.
It's so funny that this family that the hitchhiker brings them to, obviously crazy cannibals. And
not obviously.
No. Do you not think it's obvious that they're at least crazy?
I think the mother is an automaton, but I think that they're fairly plain.
They're so distant and cold, and the whole family is even almost like spacey.
But is that something being missed because of our Western eyes, seeing this as an extra cold family. Maybe they're only like lukewarm.
Maybe they're only by Indonesian standards, or they're
I don't know. I think the mother's obviously creepy. She's just
like the
strange-looking human being.
The long stares.
Yeah.
And
why waiting for her to blink? And I forget to blink a lot, especially when I'm all intense and stuff. It
was just really creepy.
Squirrel.
She has these moments where she's staring at somebody, and the camera changes perspective. Where she would normally turn her head, she doesn't turn her head. The eyes turn first, and then the head follows really slowly, and she has that sort of very melodic way that she's delivering her dialogue, which makes it seem almost like she's trying to reel in her insanity or something like that, just trying to really keep it suppressed. And because towards the end of the film, she's kind of lost her mind.
Yeah, even with those eyes leading her glances, she still tends to blink very irregularly. And it was her dialogue that made me wish that I could see an Indonesian vampire film, because it was so melodic and beautiful, like a totally beautiful language that lent itself almost better than, I don't know, Slovakian? I don't know, what does Dracula speak nowadays?
I don't know.
Romanian? Yeah.
Well, I kind of go to that area just because obviously like Bela Lugosi makes you think of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was like a really, really beautiful speech. And even her weird, creepy, like metered speech was really, really beautiful. A lot of the costuming was rather plain. Indonesia's a like fairly colorful country, especially their traditional garb. Right.
Yeah, a lot of these people were wearing just collared shirts and
a lot of really plain color scheme throughout the whole film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it lent it to, because Dara's character, who's leader of the household, she has like such a formal, almost meek appearance with the sweater and the plain white dress and the hair all done up very proper, and wearing the white stockings with the heels, and you know you wouldn't really get the sense that this woman is as vicious as she turns out to be.
No, you wouldn't think she has it in her, you know, but she does seem to take after the one son, Adam, the cold Michael Myers type killer, where they're both very, very statuesque, and both very, very good looking, and both very, very together, and both very, very quiet. He only has like 3 words, I think. She has a lot of dialogue, but it's all that very metered, you know, plain speaking, very calm and controlled speaking until the very, very end. So I think that they sort of like mirror one another that way.
Right.
For sure. Until the end, of course, where she falls apart.
Yeah. Well, then they have that really awesome, she's got a chainsaw and she's fighting.
Yeah, like the scene on the cover.
Yeah, the scene on the cover, which was what sold me on the movie in the first place, because I had seen a lot of different kinds of crazy fights through horror and anime and action movies and stuff like that. But I couldn't really put my finger on something where it was like a machete or a sword. It was kind of like it wasn't quite a katana, but it was something, some kind of antique sword, versus a woman wielding like a chainsaw and just flailing it around, and it just seemed really cool. And it's funny because when you're going back to like Texas Chainsaw, I actually was like, wow, there's a lot of people that actually die via chainsaw in this movie, as opposed to Texas Chainsaw, where there's just one in the first movie.
Yeah, where you're kind of chased around with it, if anything, or taunted with it.
And it's very like the effects are really up in your face, and they don't really shirk away from anything, but they do manage to take away some of the violence with how these scenes are shot.
Like the one where they take the sound out, which is it's not an alien technique, but it's just used so beautifully. Yeah. And it's one of the few scenes that has a real hit of color, other than the blood hitting the killer. Right. It's got a real hit of color and a beautiful sound to the music in that scene.
The music. And where usually you would be expecting to hear chainsaw revving, the guy getting killed screaming, all the people that are witnessing this screaming, as opposed to that, you get like this, all that's been muted, and you just get this music, which kind of reminds, like, again, like I can't help but liken it to Texas Chainsaw, where they're at the dinner table and you're really only hearing that chick screaming. I find that very jarring, but I felt like it was that's in that movie, that's what lent it to the creepiness. But I felt like the creepiness came from these moments where they would mute sound and just have something else going on.
Yeah, the one thing with that scene, that's one of the first times where you notice, and we noticed it many, many times throughout this movie, and it's one of my favorite points of this movie, is that the men aren't just screaming or upset. They are losing their shit.
Oh,
over and over and over and over and over.
Spasming.
They are freaking out.
Absolutely.
They are inconsolable wrecks, and they are losing their minds entirely.
Yeah, but I feel that's so realistic. I mean, if bunch of me and my friends were captured and we're getting butchered for God knows what reason, I would not be composed at all. Like, I have no problem saying that I'm a fucking coward, and I could not stand seeing people getting killed in front of me, and I would freak the ever-living fuck out. But the one thing that I liked, and I mentioned this to you when we were watching it, the Jimmy character, when he was freaking out probably the most, like, he had, like, the whole shoulder flailing, squealing thing.
Muscle in his body was just freaking out. I can't think of a better word than freaking out.
Yeah, he was just totally... It
said hysterical. He was hysterical.
Yeah, it was a complete freak out, But at the same time, he didn't want his friends to get killed, and he didn't want them to get hurt. So he was kind of brave at the same time, very cowardly at the same. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't know what he was going to do, but he had to do something. Yeah. And it involved him. Like, he eventually got kicked in the face for shouting at the fat guy. He's like, stay away from her, don't hurt my friend, like, let her go, and blah, blah, blah. When you cut to 30 seconds later, and he's just squealing for his own life. Yeah. Now he's like, it's the same thing, but he's like screaming for somebody else's life now. Yeah, yeah. And I just really dug it. I dug his character. Mm-hmm. And, another thing that it's such a messy movie that I loved about it, and you had mentioned a couple of times that you really liked how much blood there just had all over the place.
Oh yeah, they were like slipping and sliding in, and it's like not that comical sort of slapstick kind of slipping in it.
Not at all.
There's at one point it almost does border into that slapstick slipping around in a puddle of blood thing, but
I think it was Reiko or whatever his name, the bald guy. He's just.
But it only borderlines that, because you can imagine yourself being in his situation and being beaten weak, and then having to deal with the sheer amount of blood that is literally everywhere. Yeah. There's no handholds, and it's slippery. And then they show it like twice, the sort of shoes they're wearing. It's not that they're wearing very grippy shoes, and it's not that they're on carpet. So there's an explanation for this unbelievable amount of slippage that there.
I even think that one guy was barefoot, the bald guy that was slipping. I think he was not wearing any shoes at all.
At that point. And then later when the girl's slipping in
she's wearing like...
I don't remember now if it's the same room or a different room.
No,
it's a different room.
It was a different room. Yeah. It was a big house. It's like a villa. Yeah. So it's really big, like lots of different rooms. But I mean, the body count in such a short amount of time is so huge. Because they have like extra characters to come in to get killed, but basically. I mean, it's so cool. Yeah, like Adam just dispenses with them like a fucking ninja.
They're fully forgiven for that too. If you tried to pull that in most American slasher horror flicks, just carting in a truckload of randoms to kill within maybe 8 minutes. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and then boom, they're mostly all dead. They would be called out on that immediately.
It would just bad. It would just be, oh, that's an excuse to up the body count. But I felt like it was so, like the way that it was shot, and Adam looks so cool, just like flipping around the stairs and like
a ninja.
Like a ninja. Like he wasn't really doing any, like it's not like he was doing some sort of next level martial arts that you would see in some sort of action movie. He was just like, this is a stealthy guy that knows how to kill people.
He is, and he's at that point pretty jacked up on. He's pretty stoned on killing at that point.
For real.
Yeah, the way he jumps up those stairs, and just when he's finally got a hold of somebody, and he picks them up and slams them down at one point. Yeah, it's. I'm just so stoned on Adam because he's like, oh my god, I don't even want to tell you guys. Oh my god, he's hot.
He's a very good looking man.
Don't even. Let's not talk about that.
You're going to need a couple of minutes.
Oh, God.
He's got
anyway, yes, I do. I'll be back.
Okay. No. I'll keep them entertained.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, he's crazy good looking. It's stupid.
Going back to the truckload of... They're cops, basically. The the cops show up, and then, Adam does that dispatching of them, and then by that point the entire villa seems caked in blood, just everywhere. And then they take it another step further by going into like the dead baby room, and there's really no other room. There's nothing else.
I wanted applause there. I'm sorry, we have to break for applause. The dead baby room.
The dead baby room.
Fuck yeah.
There's really it seemed it was there for a shock value. I'm not even really sure why it was just dead babies.
No, and we were thinking about that when they encountered it, and like sure there was some baby action and stuff, but I mean like there wasn't any like, oh yeah, by the way, we specifically like the pregnant ones because then we can do this, or there wasn't any like, oh, we have a market for that.
Well, Dara had a very specific interest in the baby. That was like her main interest after.
Yeah, it wasn't explained why though.
No, not really. You could see that motherhood though was really important to the character, despite all of her sort of weird, twisted tendencies. She did seem legitimately upset when things were happening to her own kids, and that's kind of when it's not funny anymore, right? It's like, well, it's fine when we're all killing you, but the second you start like hurting us, then that's gloves are off and stuff like that. But so the dead baby room is just where this awesome sequence goes down. I love it. It's like Adam versus like three people basically. Yeah. The three survivors that are still left, and he's just like fucking them up.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah.
It's not really explained. One of the things that I liked about this movie, and I sort of prefaced it before we even watched it. I said this movie is very much in tune with the crazy redneck horrors where it's all like cannibals and stuff like that. I mean, these characters aren't rednecks, but that's just what I'm just using to blanket the whole thing. But it also has, where I feel the Asian influence comes in, is the somewhat supernatural elements that are in the story. Yeah,
where I'm asking, have they been imbued with superpowers? And the answer is no.
Some of the characters, I mean, Adam in particular, even Dara, they seem to be able to take a lot of damage. They're very strong. Like Adam is ridiculously strong. Like he's manhandling full-grown men, and it's definitely indicated that somehow eating human flesh is somehow giving these guys some sort of powers. It's hard to say. They don't really ever touch on it. It's just sort of implied.
No, there are photos in the film that are dated much older than the characters appear. So definitely have some sort of longevity thanks to whatever that they're doing. You can almost, like, they don't come out and say that they're cannibals either.
It's true.
The family themselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm. They could be drinking blood. They could be vampires.
They could be vampires. There's definitely something there, and I don't know if it's something that is just in that region. If that's some sort of
like a folk,
legend or something like that. But it definitely was something that I hadn't really. It just added more subtext to what they were doing and added more story. And that was the other thing. As things really ramp up very quickly in this movie, you're only given a little bit of exposition at the beginning, and then boom, they're at the house. Boom, all the murder and mayhem starts.
Yeah, it was going so slow and mundane at first, for the first like very short while, because I have a very, very short attention span and get bored really quickly. I was, like I said, oh my God, when is this going to ramp up? And then I was hit in the face full throttle with tension and horror and action and blood.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that escalated quickly. So
Absolutely.
It did. It really, really did. Thank God.
Yeah. The Mo brothers are the ones that did this. And it's interesting that I don't know if this is their first horror film, but it definitely felt like the type of horror movie where the people making it wanted to do a really... some people make horror because like, I'm trying to get my foot in the door, or I'm trying to just make something really quick and on the cheap or something like that. But I really felt like it was made with love. Like it was made with people who wanted to make something very gritty, messy, in-your-face type of horror movie, and they wanted to just really showcase their talents as filmmakers. And I think that they, across the board, like, it was great. This is this is when I first saw it, this has moved into one of my favorite horror movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's definitely a great film. Like, really, really great.
Yeah.
And I can see why it's one of your favorites. And that's out of a lot of movies. Like, you've seen 10 times more film than I have, that's for sure.
Well, that's debatable. But
No, I really am positive that you've seen, maybe like 7.5 times more film than I.
Right.
But no, it is a fantastic movie, and it's got great amounts of gore, but not one drop of that blood is over the top. It's all believable.
It's artistic.
All the kills are wonderfully medically believable. A lot of them where I'm saying that they're hitting all those notes that these, lost groups of people come to the house in the countryside and encounter the crazy family and everyone gets killed. Those sort of movies where they're hitting all those little bits, like when the killer is encountering somebody on the other side of a door and things like that. They just do it differently, but just enough differently that they put a lot of thought into it. It's a beautiful movie.
In terms of this particular type of genre of horror, I really think that it's one of my favorite examples of it, and that's kind of how I categorize things that I like the best. It's kind of like, what's the best slasher movie? What's the best like true crime thing? What's the, you know what I mean? Like, what's the best action movie? What's the best anything? Or all the subcategories that kind of go with that. What's the best zombie movie? What's my favorite vampire movie? And in terms of this, of like the killer family, I mean, it's easily my favorite one, and it's for the reasons that you said. Like, it's just, there's just something about it that is just so different but so familiar at the same time that I just love it, and I could honestly watch this movie 100 times. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could definitely watch it over and over. I feel the same way about Sick Nurses, though, that has a lot of gore and a lot of blood like that. Just like people swimming in it.
Oh yeah, but with Sick Nurses, and I love Sick Nurses too. Like, that's a great movie. With Sick Nurses, it's almost it's very
dreamlike, surreal kind of thing.
Yeah, surreal. Where I feel like Macabre is just a little bit more like down to earth.
Oh my God, is it ever? Yeah, it's really realistic. Like I was saying, the kills are realistic. The amount of blood's realistic. The people are they dressed realistically.
Everything's realistic.
The women are fairly realistic. The men are realistic looking. I mean, they probably have realistic jobs and incomes.
Yeah, you can definitely see, like, you're not like looking at a bunch of Abercrombie and Fitch models getting killed off. You're looking at what seems to be people that could be your friends. I mean, if all your friends are Asian, but at the same time,
are you saying they're old? Is that what you're saying?
Asian. You gotta check that hearing aid.
Good one. Good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, because they are all like 40 or something, right?
Yeah.
They're not like spring chickens. They're not
no.
on March break. They're not,
no, like
you said, swimsuit models or fashion models.
Yeah, they're just
hoodie models. Like Abercrombie & Fitch is hoodies in my brain, so I don't know how that equates, but sure, yeah.
Even like the house looks like just like an old villa. Like, nothing really looks like a set. Nothing looks like like a movie. And like I said, the kills are just. I've always been, and there's been lots of people that have been in the school of thought where killing somebody is fucking hard work. You don't just, sometimes people make it look just so easy, but I mean, it's sweaty, dirty, messy work. And this is a sweaty, dirty, messy movie. And that's what I like so much about it. Yeah,
it's such a Hitchcock way of thinking.
That's exactly, that was Hitchcock.
It was. It is gross. And when you remark at the one girl looking pretty hardcore pretty fast.
Yeah.
She's ends up in duress, to put it lightly. Right. And within about 3 minutes, she just, her hair is a mess, her face is a mess, she's covered in blood, and she's pissed and scared. And and she looks it. She looks every inch of that, and she gets 10 times more beat up through the whole thing. Everyone gets
that's what it is. No one really got off easily. No one got like that quick. Oh, I'm dead.
Even the villains.
Yeah.
They're all put through the ringer just terribly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is like aside from like maybe like the cops, like those guys kind of got like.
Oh, they got dead fast.
Yeah, they got off pretty easily, but I mean, like let's be real, like they were there to get killed, but everyone else really seemed to, want to live. And that's kind of like the weird thing when you're looking at horror movies, especially slasher movies, is like, yeah, they're running away and they clearly don't want to survive. But when it kind of gets down to the moment where the writers or the director is like, okay, well, now it's time for this person to die, it's almost kind of like they just tap out and they're just like, okay, well, I'm dead.
That or there's absolutely no recourse. They're tied to the thing. Their legs are chopped off. They've got stuff around their neck, and their girlfriend is skinned alive in front of them, and they've got a hatchet coming down on them.
People are getting fucking shot, like arrows through them, like every blade.
And taking it.
And just being like, well, you didn't get me in the head, so I'm not dead, so I'm going to pull this out, I'm going to shove you away, I'm going to punch you in the fucking face. Like, it's just... raw.
To get shot another day.
To get shot another day.
Yeah. Like playing that game of, oh God, don't run outside because this is going to happen. And it sort of does eventually, but not like you want it to, or like it's supposed to, or like if it did happen that way, you'd be disappointed. That never happens.
That crossbow scene is, when you really watch it, when you're staring at that crossbow scene, they film it in such a way where you don't know who's getting the crossbow. Like, like everyone's running, it's hysterical, and it cuts to this person, and then it just cuts back to Dara, and she's just like cool as a cucumber, just aiming, and you don't know who she's aiming at because it doesn't make it obvious. And so it keeps cutting to one character, another character, and you're like, who's getting the crossbow? There's no one that aims this much that's going to miss. Who's getting the crossbow? And then boom, it happens. You get the crossbow, and you're like, oh my! And I'm like, oh my God, they got it.
And you're thinking, why?
Oh, that was crazy.
And then the rain comes. Yeah, which is that's another beautiful seasonal Asian element that I love about this movie. There's not a lot of it. There's enough of it. It is beautiful, and they do take advantage of their setting at that point.
I buy it coming from that region. You know how like in movies it always rains way too hard.
Exactly.
Because rain doesn't show up on film, so you have to make the drops big and you have to make it...
Or for it to rain on cue in a monsoon, to do that at that point was completely believable. Yeah, completely believable.
Because it's like, how often do you... I mean, it does happen, but how often do you look outside and it just starts to downpour instantly? And then how long does it last more than 30 seconds or a minute?
Yeah, it's like rare. That's so rare.
But in movies all the time, I can never get over how hard it's raining all the time and how much it's just like... I was like, it doesn't rain this much. Like, not here. But in Indonesia, I could buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super highly recommended. I don't know where you'd find it. You can definitely order it off CD Plus or wherever online.
Yeah, I would just recommend getting it online. I've seen it in HMV a few times, but I mean that doesn't help anyone that's not anywhere near one of those. But yeah, definitely check it out if you can, because it really is a fantastic example of the genre. If you're a horror fan, you got to see it. If you're just into any sort of, like, really, like I said, messy horror, it's a messy horror movie.
Oh, it totally is. I loved it. And you know what? If we cross our fingers and squeeze our eyes shut and pray to baby Jesus, someone will redo it.
Someone will redo it.
And that'll be just fucking great. Like Tale of Two Sisters. I used to think that Tale of Two Sisters was hard to find on DVD, and I had to order it. And then there was talk of redoing it, which was a complete mess. And then suddenly the original film was available on DVD everywhere. So maybe we'll be lucky that way. Not that this would be remade, but that it'll be available everywhere.
That all of a sudden, like some other distributor would pick it up and want to just shove it out. That happens sometimes when some distributor has a movie and then they don't do anything with it, and then somebody else picks it up, and then all of a sudden you get all of these examples.
I just hope that it's not dubbed.
Yeah, I really felt like it being in the original language. I know some people don't like reading subtitles. Those people always baffled me. But maybe it's just because...
Well, they kind of look down and up and down and up. And that they...
I don't know why you can't just look at... Like, can't you just look at the screen and read it and look at the same... I don't know why it's like...
Yeah, no, I have no trouble with it either. But
I'm so used to it. Can't recommend to somebody enough. If you just are watching things that are just from... the United States or Canada or something like that, you're really missing out. You really need to expand your horizons.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, if you have an opportunity, check out Macabre, highly enjoyable horror movie. Until next time, I'm Wes Knight.
I'm Typical Lydia.
And you've been listening to Dead Air.